Greetings, Namo Buddhaya. I am K.T.S. Rao, former professor and head of the Department of Buddhist Studies, Delhi University, and Pro-Chancellor, Subharti University. In this module number 34, I shall be talking about the role of Islam and Ṣūfism in the decline of Buddhism. Many Victorian Indologists and nationalist scholars have squarely blamed the militant Arabs and Turks who were known by the blanket name of Trushka of the Muslim faith for committing a cold-blooded slaughter of monks, destroying Buddhist monasteries, appropriating their property, and sweeping Buddhism out of India. In support of this view, literary, epigraphical and archaeological evidence has been cited. For instance, in Sindh in 711 of the Common Era, Muhammad bin Qasim destroyed places of worship. The Sompur Mahavihar, now in Bangladesh, was set ablaze by an army of Turks. The Odantpuri Mahavihar, located a few miles from Nalanda, was sacked and razed to the ground in 1199 by Khalji soldiers. According to the Tabakat-e-Nasiri, to quote, Bakhtiyar with great vigor and audacity rushed in at the gate of the fort and gained possession of the place. Great plunder fell into the hands of the victors. Most of the inhabitants were Brahmins with shaven heads. They were put to death. A large number of books were found there, and when the Mohammedans saw them, they called for some persons to explain their contents, but all the men had been killed. It was discovered that the whole fort and city was a place of study. In the Hindu language, the word Bihar means college, unquote. As a result of such raids by the Trushkas, many ordained monks were massacred. Both Vikramshila and Udantapuri were destroyed, and the Mahabodhi temple of Bodh Gaya was abandoned. Before the invasion of Qasim in 711, as can be seen in the travelogue of Xuanzang, Buddhism had declined substantially in Sindh. A study of the Chachnama indicates that when the Arabs invaded Sindh, they primarily focused on two things. They wanted to preserve the economic infrastructure of the region so that it could be exploited to the maximum extent possible. They also wanted to achieve the conquest of Sindh with the least number of Arab casualties. Hence, when resistance was intense or protracted in Sindh, the Arab response was equally severe. In both cases, however, the Arab concern with securing a financially viable Sindh impelled them to generally exempt artisans, merchants and agriculturists. In order to understand conversion to Islam, we must take into consideration the overall atmosphere of uncertainty, distress, anxiety, fear, discrimination and inducement of those who actually experienced conversion. In such an atmosphere, regardless of what the Arab policy may have been, some non-Muslims must have perceived conversion as the only solution to deal with the forces let loose by the initial conquest of Sindh. Though the Arabs took their Islam seriously and a world free of kafirs and idol temples remained their stated Quranic ideal, political and military power equations mostly kept them from actively pursuing such an agenda. Muhammad Habib has pointed out that Qasim's primary goal was to focus on stability, loyalty and revenue, and for this he, to quote Habib, saw clearly that his objects would be best achieved by a mixture of conciliation and terrorism, unquote. However, indirectly, the Arab policy of capitulation and settlement drove at least some sections of the population of Sindh into the alley of Islam. Basically, the Sindhis were given the choice between jizya, the poll tax, and Islam, rather than sword and Islam. Under such an arrangement, all dhimmi adult males were required to pay a graded jizya, sine qua non of the dhimmi status, in either cash or kind. Qasim ordered that, to quote, those who are still inclined to be of their own faith must put up with injuries, gazand, and tribute, jizya, to retain the religion of their fathers and grandfathers, unquote. Paradoxically, the financially starved Arabs became stakeholders in the continuation of those holy places that generated revenue for the empire, while allowing others to become derelict that did not. This may have also been a part of the Arab strategy to gain the loyalty of the monks and priests by making them their employees and hence beneficiaries of the empire. Many Buddhist merchants and artisans in Sindh voluntarily converted to Islam as it made better business sense. Patricia Risso has said, to quote, the success of Muslims attracted, even sometimes economically necessitated conversion, unquote. Richard Eaton has suggested that acts of temple desecration were nearly invariably carried out by military officers, and they typically occurred on the cutting edge of the moving military frontier. Of course, it is always possible for individual participants to have their personal agenda in such events. As a whole, some Hindu temples and Buddhist viharas located inside or near the royal palaces, besides being places of worship, were viewed as symbols of political power. Their destruction was politically, not religiously motivated. The primary sources indicate that the Buddhists of Sindh tended to collaborate with the invading Arabs at an early date and more completely than the Hindus. However, this kind of approach on the part of the Buddhists must have acted as a halfway house in their ultimate embrace of Islam.